Okay, very well. Welcome back. Now, this is the chart that I just prepared for you so that you can make a diagnosis following these lines. Now, here in the top, you need to enter today's date when you'll be making the first diagnosis. You will enter the name and last name of the patient or customer. And here you will have to indicate the color of the foot as it appears to you at the time of treatment. Now remember, an indication of good health is pink. Obviously, if this is going to turn yellowish due to a lowering of the immune defense, then you will have to indicate yellow. If you will have a darker color that is an indication of bad circulation, then you write that color down. Then you need to indicate the temperature. It's easy. Just feel the feet. Now, if they're particularly warm, feet that usually people refer to them as boiling feet, or whether the feet are frozen. Consider that after the treatment, let's say around halfway through the treatment, after 20 minutes that you're working in reflexology, even the coldest feet will start to warm up. Now, if the temperature doesn't increase, then that's an indicator of lack of energy, and therefore you will need to work on the kidneys zone, which is right in the middle of the feet. Texture. Now, for texture, you need to indicate whether the foot is particularly hard, which is an indicator of a stiff body, people who are usually very sturdy, or on the contrary, whether the texture is spongy, which is also an indicator of lack of energy. Now, general aspect. Well, under this heading, you need to check. You need to check whether the foot appears to be dry. If it's a dry foot, then that's an indicator of poor energy in the lungs zone. Or if a foot tends to perspire a lot and have a bad odor, so you'll have to work on the second module, the stomach, or whether the foot starts to sweat a lot. So then you'll have to alleviate the adrenal glands zone, and then you write it here. Now, as for calluses, you may find calluses. Then you can find these in the heel zone, which is an indicator of tension in the gluteal region. You could find calluses here on the side of the feet. This is the shoulder blade or shoulder zone. You could find them in this zone, which is the lung zone, and which is an indicator of compression of the rib cage, obviously on both feet. And then you can also find them here. This is the resting point. This corresponds to the thyroid, and immediately underneath that, the stomach. Then we need to check for calluses or soft corns. Now, as I was saying before, calluses are always found on the surface of the foot, so either the bottom or top. But you will never find calluses between the toes. In this case, you have soft corns. So when you need to write whether there are any calluses. So a specific callus could be here in the shoulder zone and the thyroid zone, or even here. This corresponds to the appendix, which means that at that specific point in time you have tension in there. Then you need to check whether you have any soft corns between the various toes, whether you find it between the first and second. There, you know that you will be working on the throat, second, third finger or toe, lacrimal channel, third, fourth, inner ear, fourth, fifth, outer ear. So, we've done the calluses and soft corns. Now, we move on to indicate whether there are any ruined or missing nails. So you check the nails and you see which of them are more ruined. Consider that we have to take into consideration whether a nail has been ruined because of a hard blow that the person has suffered to that nail, then obviously this was caused by an external agent. In that case, you won't take it into consideration. If a person, however, says, look, this nail hasn't been growing back for many years, then in that case, you will need to work on the entire corresponding module to reinforce the energy in that element. Then we will write whether there are any fingertips here in this area that are like this one. You see, I call it the blade of a knife, which is the result of the hyperproductivity of the corresponding gland. So, fifth finger, adrenal glands, fourth liver, third ovary or testicles, depending whether it's a male or female, second toe pancreas, first toe hypophysis. Okay, here, where it says whether there is something specific, so a specific callus. Now, nobody will forbid you to actually stimulate these zones, even if you don't find that callus. Then you have to to check whether there is any separation between the toes or deformities in the toes. You can see this foot is pretty perfect. All toes touch each other, and it is an indicator of a healthy spinal cord. But where you find a deformity or a hammer toe, this is an indicator that there is tension in that section of the spinal cord. So if the big toe is, you have a cervical vertebrae, the second is dorsal, third is lumbar, fourth sacral, and fifth toe is the coccyx. Now, if there's a separation between the first and second, then we have tension in the neck, here mid-back, lumbar region, and here we have the sacral region. Now, this client that posed for me for this picture, you see this area here, the toes touch each other, but they tend to be more separated. And she's also very thin. So in this area, when there is this gap, this separation, I will explain to you this better in the next videos, but this is tension in the sacral region. So here you need to note down whether there are any deformities or separation between the toes. As you can see, I have listed acupressure and pain in the last section. Most reflexologists actually focus strictly on pain to find a problem, but it's not the only element of the diagnosis. There are other elements that need to be taken into account. First, you need to make this whole diagnosis, and last, you will take into consideration the pain factor. So, if you find an area that is particularly painful, then you will need to work on that. You'll work a couple of minutes. Then you may move to the other foot, work on another section, and then go back to that foot, such as in this section from here to here, which is the ascending intestine section. If you find it particularly painful, work on it for a couple of minutes. Then you can distract that foot by working on the other foot, and then you can go back to it and work on it again to see whether the situation has changed at all. Okay, very well. Now once you have completed this whole section, you will have a lot of material to work on. You can also mark down with a magic marker. You can mark the areas that are particularly enhanced. So you may have like a big callus here in the lung zone or in the thyroid zone, or maybe that person has a wart on the heel, so a lowering of the immune system of the genital system. Or you may also find that while you're stimulating the inner side of the foot, which, as I said before, corresponds to the spinal cord, you may find a zone, this one here, the sacrals and lumbar. So from here to here, we have lumbar, and from here to here, sacral region. This may also be painful, and therefore you will have to work on it. Here below, You have other pictures that you can also work on. If you have a crack, for example, between one toe and another, which is an indicator of problems in the lacrimal channel, you can mark this down, also show where the redness is or where the calluses are, and take note of this. Once you have collected all this information, then you will have sufficient material to make a diagnosis, a detailed diagnosis. This is very specific work. It may take up to 40 minutes to do. The results are excellent, and believe me, you'll be very happy of this. Now, you can also use the back of this page if you don't have enough space here to write additional notes. Now, when the client or the customer who's receiving treatment from you will come back for the next session, for the next treatment, for the second treatment, take note, write down things like, maybe you worked on their intestine, then take note that they are defecating more efficiently, that they're going to the toilet more regularly, or that they don't have such frequent colds anymore. So you have a detailed medical examination of that person, so the state of health of that person. This is what I'm trying to say. So I will see you later then. Enjoy the foot reflexology video, and for any information you can contact me at info@massage-courses-online.com. See you later.